This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about how to do really stupid things with Bitcoin. So we have this situation in Canada. We have Justin Trudeau and the elites, and then we have the truckers and the protesters. Trudeau last week invoked the Emergencies Act, and then there were these efforts to get some funding for the truckers. GoFundMe was basically stymied by the government. GiveSendGo was another one that was hacked, or there was some other problem. And so all of these crowdfunding options for the truckers were basically shut down. And then there was the further complication that crypto and other crowdfunding using crypto was then being monitored under the Terrorist Financing Act as part of invoking the Emergencies Act. So there were a lot of Bitcoiners who got together and said, this is Bitcoin's hour to shine. Let's get those truckers some Bitcoin. And if we can't do it through normal fiat channels, let's do it using Bitcoin. You can see lots of talk about this on Twitter and on the various crypto and Bitcoin websites. Here's a tweet that says the way the Bitcoin funds were distributed to the Canadian truckers was pretty incredible. It introduced an incentive for them to learn on their own about what Bitcoin is. Great job, etc. There's even a Bitcoin Magazine article about this that you can read about. What I want to say in this video is that this was a complete disaster, and I'm not sure a lot of people are aware that the way in which this was done was quite bad. There's a Vice article you can read about it, which I'll link to, which talks about many of the mistakes that were made, at least from an outside of Bitcoin perspective. But I want to talk about some of the Bitcoin parts of it in this video, because a lot of people still think that Bitcoin is this ultra private technology, and it's more of a neutral technology that can be used in a private way or can be used in a really stupid way. So we had this fundraising called Hong Kong HODL. This was the fundraising movement for the truckers. They were using an app called Tallycoin, which was a way of receiving Bitcoin. So the idea was Bitcoiners send some Bitcoin to Tallycoin if they wanted to support the truckers, and then this Bitcoin would then be distributed to the truckers individually. So this is many of the things that were done wrong. First of all the Bitcoin donations were sent to the same address. We always talk about how never to reuse a Bitcoin address on this channel. It just makes it much easier for the chain surveillance, the chain analysis firms. But as I understand it, this is how Tallycoin does it. They use that same address. Now the advantage of this was you just give out one address, and everyone can send their Bitcoin to that. The problem with this is it makes it extremely easy to track. And then the way in which the Bitcoin was distributed, this is the bigger problem. So there's this problem of trying to make sure that the Bitcoin was distributed in a fair way, and to make sure that those who are doing the distribution didn't try to take some Bitcoin for themselves. So they had this very elaborate thing where everyone was in a room and they were printing out Bitcoin wallets or printing out the recovery seeds, and then they were going to smash the printer. You can read about this in the Vice article. It's a bit overcomplicated and crazy, but the final decision was to basically distribute this Bitcoin, give everyone a piece of paper that had the 12 words or 24 words, basically a recovery seed, in a physical envelope. And then as you're doing this, you would take a picture of the trucker, a picture of yourself, or a video, and post it on social media. Now the problem with this is that I can't imagine. I understand why they wanted to post it to social media to create, to make sure that, to sort of document how the Bitcoin was being distributed. But the problem with this is that you now have these videos, these pictures online that are very open to law enforcement. Everyone can see everyone's faces. We have Nobody Caribou posting these videos on Twitter. And I think he's a sincere guy. You can scroll down here and you can basically see the faces of the truckers. You can see, I believe the person distributing this is Nobody Caribou. We don't know his name, but you can be sure, based on his picture, that the Canadian government knows who he is. But it's basically one video after another documenting a crime. I'm not sure exactly when this happened, but it became illegal under the Emergencies Act to distribute money to these protesters. So no matter how benevolent Nobody Caribou's intentions were, what he has here is he's basically doxed all these people, and documented that they received Bitcoin. In many cases, you can see the names of the trucks, you can see their faces, etc. And I think nobody Caribou was surprised to see that he ended up as a defendant in a class action lawsuit. What he was relying on, and what he says at the top here, is that he has nothing to hide. He's protected under the Canadian Charter of Rights. But my understanding is when you have an emergency executive order, or you're invoking the Emergencies Act, this overrides all your rights and freedoms. So what happened here is basically you have all the Bitcoin going to one address that can be tracked, and then you have it physically being distributed with people's faces and videos. And now you have this complete mess. Now, if you're not sympathetic to the truckers, all I would say is that this is a teaching example. And you can imagine, what I'd like you to do is just imagine the politician or the party that you hate the most being in power and basically clamping down on everyone. So if this doesn't inspire you, the trucker thing, you can imagine a similar scenario where you would want to get funds to protesters, whether on the left or on the right. Now, I'm not calling into question the sincerity of most of these people who are doing the Bitcoin donations and distributions. I just think that they're incredibly naive, and the way they did it was quite stupid. One of them is most certainly a spook, a government agent as well. Again, that's just my personal opinion, and I'm probably wrong about it. So now we have the RCMP in Canada basically blacklisting a bunch of these addresses. You can find this list online. And for the fun of it, I decided to look up a couple of these on the blockchain. So these are the Bitcoin addresses that were used to receive the Bitcoin donations through Tallycoin. You can basically just copy the Bitcoin address here. You could put it in a block explorer like mempool.space. And we can see, I believe this is the address that the Bitcoin was donated to, because everyone said it was about 21 Bitcoin, which at various points during this was worth about $1 million. It's roughly, I think, where it is now. We can see the Bitcoin that was received to that address, and then it was then distributed. And you can also see all the transactions. So this is what transactions look like on the Bitcoin blockchain. Again, there's no personal information attached to the blockchain itself or inscribed on the blockchain, but you do have these addresses. You have an example of address reuse as well. And so even though you and I don't know who's behind each of these BC1 addresses, you can be sure that chain surveillance firms probably do. And we'll talk in a minute about how they do that. You can look, here's a tweet thread that I'll link to that talks about basically tracing all of these donations on chain. You can see sort of a map of it, and you can see 101 wallets were created on behalf of the truckers. They test deposited 4,800 sats in each wallet. Then they added more, and eventually these wallets, most of them ended up with about $8,000 worth of Bitcoin on them. So now you have this problem. These addresses you can't really block an address, but what you can do is you can tell a crypto exchange or a Bitcoin exchange if you receive any Bitcoin from this address, one of these addresses here, or an address closely associated with it, maybe 1 or 2 hops or 3 or 4 or 5 hops away, you need to confiscate that Bitcoin and not allow it to be turned into fiat. So basically, all these donated Bitcoin are tainted until they go through a coin join. And as far as I can tell, no one's done a coin join on them in order to sever its future path from its history. So there's a problem with this Bitcoin now. It's important to realize, as I said before, that Bitcoin is very private at the protocol level. Your personal information is not inscribed on your Bitcoin or on the blockchain or anything like that. Taint, this idea of taint or dirty coins, is a completely external attribution. But the thing is, basically, you just need an initial insight into the ledger, and then you can track people. You just need a starting point, and this is how chain surveillance firms and crypto exchanges like Coinbase do it. The starting point is usually where someone buys KYC Bitcoin on a regulated exchange like Kraken or Coinbase or Gemini or Strike or any of these, where you have to give up your personal information, your name, your address, your birth date, your social security number if you're in the US, your driver's license, usually a selfie, etc. And so what happens is you buy your Bitcoin, you give all this personal information, and then you say, hey, I'd like to withdraw it to this external Bitcoin address. And the exchange can know or assume with a very high probability that that external address is owned by you. And from there, they can track it on the blockchain. And please remember the Bitcoin blockchain, especially if you're bullish on Bitcoin as I am, this blockchain is going to be around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's going to be around forever. It's an open ledger. And now we have this huge KYC problem where so much of the Bitcoin is associated with individual people. Now, this will eventually get solved. We're still going through the early adoption phase. We're going through the growing pains. And so this problem is eventually going to be solved by full adoption when everyone owns some Bitcoin. Also, when you end up with a circular Bitcoin economy where instead of getting your Bitcoin from an exchange, you get it for mowing someone's lawn or providing a good or service. And so you'll end up with a circular Bitcoin economy where you're earning and spending in Bitcoin. If you combine that with better privacy tools, better wallets, everyone learning how to do a coin join, you can eventually end up with some very good privacy guarantees. But right now we're going through the growing pains for that. And a lot of people are unclear about how transparent this really is on the blockchain. There is a BIP 47, which is a Bitcoin improvement proposal that's been around for a while that would really help with this. This is the so-called PayNim BIP, where you can basically provide a short name and people can, almost like a username, reusable username, and people can send Bitcoin to that, and there's no address reuse. And so that's something I can talk about in a later video. But we have this problem now, and everyone should be aware of what's happened here, and so people don't make a similar mistake. So let's say you're Canadian and you support the truckers. You buy some Bitcoin on a Canadian exchange. You do it in a KYC manner. You give up your personal information, and then you donate it to that Tallycoin crowdfunding campaign, and it ends up in one of these Bitcoin addresses. Now the exchange has followed you. The chain surveillance firms, presumably hired by the government, have watched your Bitcoin move from the exchange, and they know it's yours because you gave them your personal information, you gave them your withdrawal address. Maybe you even sent it directly from the exchange to that donation address. Even if you did a few hops in between, maybe you put it on your wallet on your phone or hardware wallet and then sent it there. It's very clear who you are and that you've donated to the truckers. And this wasn't a problem before the Emergencies Act and the Terrorist Financing Act, but now it is a problem. And so what will happen if you've done something like this, you might get a knock on your door, especially in Canada. So how to avoid this problem going forward? Consider buying non-KYC Bitcoin if it's legal where you are. Run a coin join on your Bitcoin before donating it, and this will sever its future path from its past history. Again, this is something I can't really talk about on this platform, but I do talk about it on my website. Now, at this point, I'm sure you'll see in the comments that people should be using Monero. That's a better private coin, a better privacy solution. And I would say it might make some sense to convert your Bitcoin to Monero before donating it. That's one solution. In which case, Monero is not really a good long-term investment. It's basically a tool, a privacy tool that gets attached to Bitcoin, and people store their savings, they store their wealth in Bitcoin, and then if they want to use it in a private manner, they convert a little bit to Monero and then spend it. And this means that Monero does not end up being a very good storage solution for your wealth over the long term. The other problem with Monero is that as in any engineering situation, there's not good and bad. They're trade-offs. They're engineering trade-offs. And this is what we talked about on this channel in terms of decentralization and speed and block size, etc. So the problem with Monero is it's at risk of inflation bugs, and there are other problems due to the lack of transparency. And so there's no perfect solution. Monero is definitely easier to use in a private manner than Bitcoin is, given the current state of things. But this doesn't mean that it's a good store of value, and it doesn't mean that it's a place. It doesn't mean that Monero is going to win in the long term. So what would have been a better way to do this, to accept donations? And again, this is a theoretical question. It doesn't have to be for the Canadian truckers. It could be for any group that you support that is under government pressure. One way would have been to take these Bitcoin donations, and rather than having them all go to a central address, send them to different addresses, then convert them to Canadian dollars, actual physical cash, sell that Bitcoin on an exchange before it got tainted, convert it to cash, and then distribute the cash to the truckers. Of course, this would require you to trust the people doing the cash distribution, and it is ironic that this would be a solution in the modern age of cryptocurrencies. But we're talking practical solutions here while cash still exists. Once you get a CBDC, this kind of cash distribution becomes completely untenable. So that's why it's very important to think through these things before central bank digital currencies arrive on the scene. Another thing is we could have done direct donations to the truckers in a peer-to-peer manner, where a Bitcoiner sends it directly to a wallet on a trucker's phone. Something like this. You help the trucker download the wallet, use something like the Moon Wallet or Blue Wallet on the phone, and then you send the Bitcoin directly. The other thing I would say is this is an interesting situation if you're close, if you live in Canada, for example, and you have Canadian dollars, you have some fiat that you'd like to use to buy non-KYC Bitcoin. One way of doing this would be you could provide food or other services to the truckers and then get paid in Bitcoin. At this point, it's very dangerous to do this. You don't want to end up with any of these tainted coins, especially if they haven't been coin joined. So this is not a suggestion for this particular situation, but this is a future way of a future suggestion that if Bitcoin is distributed to some political group that is protesting, Bitcoiners could then go there and take that Bitcoin in exchange for cash and have non-KYC Bitcoin. So we come to the question, is Bitcoin pretty useless because we saw all the problems with this crowdfunding campaign? And I would say absolutely not, because anyone who's connected to this protest in any way, who has even supported the truckers and other protesters indirectly, is at risk of being completely financially canceled and frozen. Their bank accounts, their credit cards, etc. So this is a huge mess. If to the extent, and there were Bitcoiners involved in this, who keep most of their wealth in Bitcoin. And so they're going to be in a much better position. They might still be part of a class action lawsuit, but no one can freeze their accounts. If you have your savings, your wealth stored in Bitcoin, no bank or politician can freeze those funds. The big problem here is that the Bitcoiners who ran this fundraiser obviously had no idea how Bitcoin works. They didn't understand CoinJoin. They didn't understand that you really should not try to link Bitcoin to public faces and post it to social media as well. So what are the takeaways here? If you're just a hodler, if you're someone in this for a number go up, or you want to protect your family's savings from inflation, there's really nothing you need to do except pull that Bitcoin off the exchange. It's already associated with you, but that's okay. Bitcoin will eventually be very widely accepted. The government already knows that you own Bitcoin because you bought it in a KYC manner. The most important thing is just to take it off an exchange, take it off of Kraken or Coinbase or Gemini or wherever you hold it. Take it out of the app on your phone if it's a custodial wallet. You want to hold it in a non-custodial solution or self-custody, something like a hardware wallet or multi-sig. If you leave your Bitcoin on an exchange, the government can tell that company, that exchange, to freeze your account. And even though Bitcoin cannot be frozen, an actual account at an exchange can be frozen. So it's very important, not your keys, not your coins, pull that Bitcoin off of the exchanges and hold it on in a hardware wallet. I talk about all the different ways to store your Bitcoin in this video, the best ways to store small and medium amounts of Bitcoin, as well as this video where I talk about multi-sig. However, so that was the case for people who are just going to be hodlers, and they're going to basically out-hodl the current government, out-hodl the IRS, out-hodl all of these problems, and just not use their Bitcoin for anything, etc., but use it as a savings vehicle. However, if you're going to use Bitcoin as an activist, as a political protester, if you're going to use your Bitcoin in any way that might upset the powers that be, rather than just hodling it, you really should learn how to buy non-KYC, anonymous Bitcoin. You should learn how to use these tools, these privacy tools like CoinJoin. And you should be aware that you need to keep your KYC coins separate from your non-KYC coins, and never mingle your mixed or coin-joined Bitcoin with your unmixed or uncoin-joined Bitcoin. All of this becomes apparent on the blockchain, on the open ledger. If you merge UTXOs that are KYC and non-KYC, the common ownership heuristic suggests to these companies that you are the owner of both of them, and so you end up destroying your own privacy. So this is what I would suggest if you're more on the activist side of things. Again, I can't really talk about it on this platform, but I do have some videos in my paid course about how to buy Bitcoin anonymously. And then I have 3 recent videos that I just made, how to use CoinJoin, the pros and cons of CoinJoin, UTXOs, chain surveillance, how to CoinJoin your Bitcoin on a desktop computer. Again, I should emphasize CoinJoin is not something to do so that you can commit illegal activities. So please do not use Bitcoin to commit any crimes. However, there may come a time when you want to break some stupid law and do so in a non-violent way. Obviously, a lot of the stuff that happened in the US during the civil rights era, there were a lot of laws, very stupid laws, that were being broken. People ended up going to jail. People ended up being killed. But sometimes there is a situation where you have to break the law. And so I want you to know how to use Bitcoin if you ever need to use it in that way. Final note, though, if someone comes to you and suggests some sort of violent solution, suggests that you should make bombs or print guns or do anything like this or attack a government building, be aware that they are almost certainly mentally unstable or a spook, and shun them from your group. Block them immediately if this happens. It's very important to understand that my view of Bitcoin is it's a non-violent solution, and it needs to be used judiciously. You should not use it to break laws unless they're really stupid laws, as we had during the civil rights era. So you've got to use some common sense here, and please don't post these videos. Don't post stuff on social media, and be very aware that Bitcoin can be used privately, can be used pseudonymously, but it can also be used in a very open way that gets a lot of people in trouble. Bitcoin, the network, will be fine. Bitcoin's not going anywhere. But Bitcoiners in Canada who did some stupid things and did not protect their privacy, a lot of them are unfortunately going to be in trouble. And I feel very sorry for them. None of this is to make light of the decisions that they made. A lot of this is very clear. It's Monday morning quarterbacking. So anyone who's in trouble for doing this, I wish you the best, and I hope you can avoid the lawsuit and you can be vindicated. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.